Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Welcome to the Cinema Club, a vast range of top titles on video, from timeless classics to cult comedy to all action blockbusters. There's something for everybody at Cinema Club.
Nothing feels more exclusive than being part of a club, right? Well, for millions of Brits across the 80s, 90s, and even into the 2000s, they were part of Cinema Club. Now, when I saw this label as a kid, often on the spines of my grandma's VHS tapes or even on the odd DVD, I assumed this was a very prestigious thing to be a part of, like you had to gain access somehow to get those often classic films sent to you on tape. Of course, the imaginations of a child are nothing compared to the actual reality. Cinema Club was merely a brand name, an exclusive sounding moniker designed to lure people into picking up whatever tape bore said branding. It was born from the ever-shifting home video market in the 1980s, and for many Brits, gave them their first access to classic films of all kinds, as well as some contemporary hits too. This is the brief history of Cinema Club.
There are many great titles to choose from at a great price from the Cinema Club range. Cinema Club, there's something for everyone.
Douglas is going away to camp. So who's going to program the VCR?
Panasonic understands. So this VCR is as simple to program as drawing a line. This Panasonic shows you what to do on screen. You can even use a phone to program this VCR.
My parents don't need me anymore. They got a Panasonic VCR too, huh?
If it's Panasonic, it's easy to program.
Starting out as something that was financially out of reach for most, before gradually becoming one of the most common household staples you could find, the advent of home video, particularly the VHS format, was beginning to rise exponentially towards the latter half of the 80s. One label that arguably helped accelerate this boom was the video collection. For the first real time, titles were released at low prices with the idea of people buying them instead of renting at the forefront. Now, instead of waiting a year, or even 2 years for the price to become somewhat affordable, audiences could now walk into their local Woolworths, pick up a tape for less than a tenner, and have complete ownership of it. Sounds common nowadays, but this was a big shift in 1985. With further companies such as Channel 5 Video following in a similar mould, more and more companies began to spring up and release video titles for a bargain price in the hopes to gain a similar sort of sales success to the video collection.
10 videos that show you everything you need to make the most of your house. And Jane Fonda's latest workout will show you how to make the most of yourself. Films, cartoons, music, and much, much more. A galaxy of entertainment that's as close as your high street and part of your home. The Video Collection, Britain's biggest selling video label.
By 1989, the Trailblazers decided that they would launch a new label, one that echoed their early beginnings, but with a branding that promised an air of sophistication and prestige. The result was, as you may have guessed, Cinema Club, with the first titles releasing that very same year. The prices for most of these were a bargain at just £4.99 a tape, and perhaps surprisingly, their first wave of titles wasn't all that exciting.
Now follows a short selection from the range. John Wayne plays a retired prizefighter who returns from Pittsburgh to his ancestral village in Ireland.
Why? Well, because the vast majority of them had already been previously released under the video collection. Classics like The Quiet Man, Sands of Iwo Jima, and more were now being sold under the Cinema Club name. Why was this the chosen tactic? You could make the argument that the video collection may as well have made use of the back catalogue that they had. It had been some years since these titles were first launched on VHS, so why not give them a re-release with new packaging, a lower price, and potentially appeal to those audiences who may have missed out the first time back in 1985. The start of each Cinema Club tape would carry a similar message to that seen on video collection ones, promising that issues were unlikely as this release was using high quality tape. The reality was that most of these movie reissues used exactly the same tape masters that the video collection had utilised just a few years before. Nevertheless, the label was up and running, and just like the video collection before it, proved to be a success, with titles selling in droves. With most releases, a trailer reel would play before the film, and with that iconic golden film strip border, you genuinely felt like you were watching something of the highest quality, even if the actual film was arguably not always the best.
The Cinema Club, an unparalleled range of major blockbusters, featuring Hollywood's biggest stars in their best films.
As the 90s came about, Cinema Club was expanding its back catalogue rapidly, striking deals with companies such as Vestron, New World Pictures, Buena Vista, and towards the end of the decade, even Film 4. But perhaps the most notable agreement was the one that they struck with RCA Columbia Pictures. This partnership would go one step further in 1995 when Cinema Club entered a joint venture with the newly titled Columbia TriStar Home Video, making the former a standalone distributor. For the remainder of the 90s and into the 2000s, when firing up a Cinema Club tape, in the trailer reels before the film, you'd begin to see more contemporary and often successful films show up, as opposed to focusing solely on the classics of yesteryear. The joint venture with Columbia TriStar was clearly paying its dividends. By the year 2000, Cinema Club was reportedly the leader in the low-price video market, with a staggering share of 41%. In terms of the total film market, in the same year, a 10% share was obtained by Cinema Club. For a label like this to not only gain strong amounts of market share in various categories, but also have numerous charting titles across the board, it's a testament to the brand's success. It seems that the original video collection model, of releasing tapes of movies people want to revisit, most of the time, for a low price, continued to work into the 21st century. However, nothing lasts forever, and Cinema Club was about to go through some pretty big changes. In the year 2002, the joint venture with Columbia TriStar was terminated, thus ending a 7-year partnership that had been very successful, particularly for Cinema Club. For Video Collection International, or VCI, times were a bit shaky too. Around the similar period, they'd sold off their entertainment distribution business, so they could focus solely on being a publisher of video and audio releases. The entire VCI branding was also at talks of being sold off by Woolworths, so the next few years would be crucial.
Welcome to Cinema Club, bringing you great movies at a great price. Here's just a taste of the wide selection to enjoy from Cinema Club.
So what of Cinema Club? Well, VCI was able to obtain the full rights to the label, bringing it back into the fold once again. A few years later, in 2004, BBC Worldwide and the Woolworths Group announced their new joint venture, where BBC Video and VCI would effectively be combined, and to be rechristened as 2 Entertain. This new company had 2 main video labels. The first bore the company name, 2 Entertain, and focused on bigger, full-sale titles. The other label was Cinema Club, still retaining its name and branding, now approaching 15 years old. It would continue to serve as the budget video label, providing cheap titles for audiences across a variety of genres. It wouldn't last long, however, as in the year 2007, 18 years after Cinema Club first began, the label was folded and shut down entirely. It's unknown for sure what the last DVD release was from Cinema Club. The latest one I have in my collection is the complete series of Batfink, which is a banger of a show, by the way. That heralds from 2004, and I know a spate of titles followed it, but irrespective of what the last release may have been, the budget video label, that for almost 2 decades had served audiences a great mix of classic and contemporary movies for a price to die for, was no more.
Welcome to Cinema Club, bringing you great movies at a great price. here's just a taste of the wide selection to enjoy from Cinema Club.
The legacy of Cinema Club may not be as revered or as talked about compared to, say, Channel 5 Video, or even the video collection label that effectively acted as its predecessor, but it still remains an important part of the UK home video scene. Even though at first it offered titles that were previously available, once it started making those big deals, particularly with Columbia TriStar, the amount of great films they could put out for an affordable price to most households was a game changer for them. For a little label like that to gain a tenth of the total film sales market is astonishing. It seems that either through family members or through collections of our own, we all have at least one title that bears that black and gold logo, letting you know that you are watching Cinema Club, and the feeling didn't get more exciting or prestigious than that.
For a more complete listing of the films available from Cinema Club, please look on the inside of your video box.
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Sean Knock, Dord Khan, Liam Domain, AJ Mac 200017, Deck, Jen, Traffy, Evan Hart 42 Radio, Tim Ripley, Mr. Eurovision 1986, Marnanel Thurman, 40-something Manchild, Jerry Ralph, John McLeod, James Wallace, Ben, Stephen Oliver, Tegan, Shadowfiend 180X, Swan Ronson, Adam Gamer, Fonzie Daz, Seraphic Euphoria, Real Random, Matthew Elliff, Pigeon's House, and Shah H, our AMTV staff members.